All right. So we're on step 11, and I don't remember exactly what we talked about, but I think we're at the point that if we realize that God has all knowledge, and I believe that he does, and God has all the power, and I'm convinced that he does, and if God dwells within each of us, and I believe that he does, then it stands to reason that we have all the power within ourselves and all the knowledge that we'll ever need to overcome anything, any conceivable situation. We just need to learn how to tap into that power. So we've talked a lot about the 11th step. And you guys got any questions? Anybody got any questions? So don't forget, this step is about the tool, the goal, and the direction, right? So the miracle of step 11 happens when I get off my knees and carry the message to the world. That's when the miracle of this happens. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to use the book and go through an easy meditation. So put all your stuff down, put your papers down, your books down, and just stretch and take a few breaths and relieve the tension and breathe in God and breathe that bullshit out. The book tells us how to meditate. So we're going to start our day off preparing our plans for the day. And before we begin, we get rid of our self-centeredness. We ask God to help us do that. And a good way to do that is the third step, prayer. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I might better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. And so close your eyes and relax and breathe and be still. Consider your plans for the day. How you going to act at work? How you going to act when you see so-and-so? Who are you going to associate with today? You're going to talk to any newcomers? You're going to talk to any old-timers? Try to have an open heart for God's grace. Try to have an open mind. Take steps and have a new experience. Have an open soul so you could be of service. Enjoy the fellowship of those around you. Not just recovery people, but everybody. Enjoy the trees and everything there is there. Your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. Enjoy God's grace. As you're thinking about the day, unsure, uncomfortable about what you don't know which way he's going to go, ask God for strength and direction, inspiration. Pause when you're in doubt. Ask God for the ability to make a decision. Relax. Take it easy. Don't struggle. Don't fight it. Don't try to figure out what's going to happen. Just enjoy it. And breathe in God and breathe out that bullshit. Now we're going to pray. We're going to ask God for the next right thing to do, the ability and the courage and the strength to do it, whatever that may be. Thanking him for his presence. Then I'm going to do the 7-step prayer. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and to my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. So thank God that you're here and you're free, and allow His will to seep into you, to your mind, to your heart, to your soul. And when you're ready, take as long as you need. Start moving your little fingers or your little toes, your shoulders slowly. There's no rush. Open your eyes again, and you have just practiced prayer and meditation out of the big book. That easy. That simple. Breathe in God and breathe out that bullshit. And that's a good formula for meditation and prayer. Has anybody got any questions on what we just did and where that came? It just came right out of the book. Right? Makes sense, simple, and it works. Okay. All right. Is everybody straight on the 11th step being the tool, the goal, and the direction? You got all that down? That's important. The tool, the goal, the direction. So the 11th step is so self-explanatory that it just tells you, sort through prayer and meditation. So that's the tool. To improve our conscious contact with God, that's the goal, as we understood Him. Praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry out, that's the directions. Yet I don't know why so many people do all kinds of things when it comes to the 11th step that have nothing to do with the directions in the 11th step. You know, like read 25 meditation books and all that, and that's their 11th step. And there's clear-cut directions in step 11 on what you need to do, and it's so simple. All right, so that's really all there is to all of that. We talked a lot about the 11th step. I'm not sure, I don't remember because I had a week off, what we covered and what we didn't cover. Does anybody need to talk about something in step 11? Anybody online there need to talk about something in step 11? Just type in a quick question for me. I don't know where the questions are. Okay, here. Here's questions. Let's see. See Charlotte there. Charlotte likes to breathe into God and breathe out the bullshit thing. So nobody has a question on step 11. Okay. So I'm going to read. Go ahead.
Rebellion dogs my every step.
Rebellion dogs my every step. That's what the book says? Is that what you find happening in your life? Why?
Well, I was driving up here thinking of that, and I don't know.
So what?
I guess fear.
Is it fear, or is it, what you're doing is you're secretly fighting turning your will and your life over to God.
Oh, absolutely.
And if rebellion dogs you every step, then you're not willing enough yet, because you still think that you have some type of power, and that you could somehow make happen what needs to happen.
Or I just really beat myself up about, and that maybe that could be the ego, or I'm not sure. I was driving here thinking about that. I was just, I can't ever give up.
Well,
I'm a piece of shit. I mean, I can at times, but then there's other times it comes on.
yeah.
So probably only, done that a lot lately, right?
Only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out.
Simple.
Yeah.
I don't always want to be kind of loving and forgiving and merciful.
Well, so let's look at that though. See, so what you just talked about is the direction, right? But what's the goal? Don't forget, we have the tool, the goal, and the direction, right out of the book, right? And you just described the direction, praying only for power of His will for us and the power to carry it out, right? So that's the direction. But what's the goal? The goal is to, with God, as you understood Him, right? So that's the goal. So when you are running the show and rebelling against what you're supposed to do here, then your goal is not to improve your conscious contact with God. Your goal is to do the easier, softer thing that you want.
My goal is to shut down and not have any feelings.
Okay.
That's my goal, is to not.
What is it about feeling that scares you? What is it about being vulnerable that gets to you?
Vulnerable or weak. It's a bad word. It's a bad word.
So what is it about being hurt that upsets you so much?
Somebody else has control.
So now we're getting down to something now. Now it's back to control again.
Somebody can hurt. I can be hurt. I can be, yeah. Somebody else. Mm-hmm. But boy, if I shut down and get in that role that I know so well.
Yeah. But if you're protecting yourself from being hurt, then you can never, ever, ever love. It's impossible for you to love if you're protecting yourself from being hurt. Because to love fully is to put yourself out there. And if somebody hurts you when you put yourself out there, that's on them, not on you. Well, no, that's a good thing, what you just said, because most of us have no idea. I mean, you take most drunks and most drug addicts, they have no idea what it is to love somebody. We say we love you all the time. Love you. But we have no idea what that means. Absolutely no ideas. Most people that come into recovery have really never actually loved because they're too shut off. And love is an unselfish thing, and we're so selfish, people like us. And love is just a totally unselfish thing. And we're just too selfish to actually really love somebody. So we have to work at that. We have to allow ourselves to be hurt. And so and put myself out there and I allow you to hurt me. Now if you hurt me, then you remember the week that we did the E over I thing, the emotion over intellect? Well, there's got to be an even balance of that, right? So at some point, my intellect needs to kick in, and I need to say, 1 week I wrote on the board, when you find out your true value, you'll stop giving people discount or something like that, it said, right? So when you know what you're really worth, you won't discount yourself to people anymore. So when you put yourself out there, and somebody hurts you, that person doesn't deserve you. They're not ready to love, and it's not necessarily you, but you have to be open to that, but you're not to the point where you're open to that yet.
I've never been, that I know of, romantically in love, not my husband, nothing, I don't know. I don't know. I feel great talking about this.
No. Well, no. Listen, I get it. Never been romantically in love. I get it.
I love my kids, I'd shoot you over my dog,
Yeah.
but, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been obsessed.
Well, yeah, obsessed. We don't. We mistake that kind of stuff for love. That's got nothing to do with love.
Sex inventory, and I sure get that. It's always been,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I'm driving here thinking about it. Just really beat myself up about being a piece of shit and being in the comfort of being that shut down.
Well, but why do you relate yourself as being a piece of shit just because you're shut down like that? Why does that how does that constitute being a piece of shit?
It doesn't. It just gets comfortable to be back into that. It takes me back into that. No, what I want to be here. I guess and I think it's just as much ego to beat myself up about. Oh, look how bad I was. It was such a piece of shit. But there is a real comfort in or familiarity. I don't know. To be.
To be what?
To be that. To not be. To be or whatever. I'm not. No like white woman.
Well, but I don't see I don't see the relation between what you're saying. I don't see the relation between being bad and being tough and being that and cutting yourself off from emotionally from people. I don't see how the two coincide. I think and thinking yourself as a piece of shit because of it. There's work in 6 and 7 that you have to do. There's definitely work in 6 and 7 that you have to do so you can see what is this that's blocking you, right? Do you feel the power of God's love? Sometimes. Okay.
What if he was thought? I believe he could. I don't know. I believe he will.
Well, because he won't always. If you're not doing your part, he won't. You see, I've said it a few times in here that I really believe that God is such a gentleman, he's never going to interfere in my life where I don't want him to. And so when I never consciously say, I don't want you in my life, God, but when I block myself off, when I purposely shut myself off and my feelings and my emotions off, I'm also blocking God off. And I'm saying, so it's my actions and my thoughts that tell God that I don't want him to interfere in this particular incident. Well, that's the thing, but are you going to turn your will and your life over to the care of God, or are you going to turn some of your will and your life over to the care of God?
I'm working on that, and I don't feel unique or special, or,
Yeah.
I just feel like this has been an ongoing theme in my
Yeah.
for 10 years. So, I'm not swarming with eagles. Most part, I'm happy, joyous, and free. For the most part, I'm peace, love, and, plant trees, and I don't know, but sometimes I just get that old. Maybe I'm tired. I'm hungry.
Well,
I don't want to write it off, though. It is something I get haunted by still. I just get haunted.
yeah. So do you have a truly open, loving relationship with anybody? Your kids? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I truly overly love my children.
Yeah, no, but I didn't ask you that. I asked if you have a truly open, loving relationship with somebody
I
else.
don't even know what that is.
Right. Okay. So what about your relationship with God? Do you spend time with God? Okay.
No matter what.
Huh?
No matter what.
Okay. Do you,
And I think he's a big boy, and I think he's, even in my worst, I can put it with God.
yeah. I'm going to read a couple of things that kind of. Let's see. No, it's okay. Okay. This is called On Waking Up, and it's from a guy named Anthony DeMelo. He's got a lot of interesting writings, this gentleman does. Spirituality means waking up. Most people, even though they don't know it, are asleep. They're born asleep. They live asleep. They marry in their sleep. They breed children in their sleep. They die in their sleep without ever waking up. They never understand the loveliness and the beauty of this thing that we call human existence. You know, all mystics, Catholic, Christian, non-Christian, no matter what your theology, no matter what your religion, are unanimous on one thing, that all is well and all is well. Though everything is a mess, all is well. Strange paradox, to be sure. But tragically, most people never get to see that all is well because they are asleep. They are having a nightmare. Last year on Spanish television, I heard a story about this gentleman who knocks on his son's door. Jamie, he says, wake up. Jamie answers, I don't want to get up, Papa. The father shouts, get up, you have to go to school. Jamie says, I don't want to go to school. Why not? Asked the father. 3 reasons, says Jamie. First, because it's so dull. Second, the kids tease me. And third, I hate school. And the father says, well, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you must go to school. First, because it is your duty. Second, because you're 45 years old. And third, because you are the principal. Wake up. Wake up. You've grown up. You're too big to be asleep. Wake up. Stop playing with your toys. Most people tell you that they want to get out of kindergarten, but don't believe them. Don't believe them. All they want you to do is mend their broken toys. Give me back my wife. Give me back my job. Give me back my money. Give me back my reputation, my success. This is what they want. They want their toys replaced, that's all. Even the best psychologists will tell you that people don't really want to be cured. What they really want is relief. A cure is painful. Waking up is unpleasant, you know. You are nice and comfortable in bed. It's irritating to be woken up. That's the reason the wise guru will never attempt to wake people up. I hope I'm going to be wise here and make no attempt whatsoever to wake you up if you're asleep. It is really none of my business. Even though I say to you at times, wake up, my business is to do my thing, to dance my dance. If you profit from it, fine. If you don't, too bad. As the Arabs say, the nature of rain is the same, but it makes thorns grow in the marshes and flowers in the gardens. Wake up. So this is Anthony DeMelo. He's got a lot of good stuff. And I think that's exactly where you're at. You are asleep. And you are refusing to wake up. And why? Well, just what he just wrote in here. You don't really want a cure, because a cure is painful. You just want your toys fixed or replaced. That's relief. Yeah.
And that's a fact. And I think I'm slow burning for it because
Yeah.
I'm obviously doing something, but
Yeah. So, yeah. I had something else to read. I don't know what happened to
I heard speakers say, I may not have had a good childhood, but I had a long one. That's hysterical.
it. Yeah. So, again, but you see, it's not about what you, what life does. It's not about the hand you were dealt in life. It's how you play the hand. It's not about how good you hit the ball. It's how you run the bases. People like us, we just want to hit the ball. We don't want to run the bases. You got to run the bases. So I did the eulogy for my brother this last week, and I talked about because my brother was a great example of not being dealt a good hand and making something of his hand, and I told the story about the auctioneer with the violin. Have you ever heard that one? They're doing an auction, and the auctioneer has this old, beat up, scratched up violin, and it's just not very good looking. And he holds it up. He says, "Who'll give me $100 for this?" Nobody. How about $50? Nobody. Anybody? $20? Anybody? So the guy says, "I'll give you $20." It's okay. 20, 25, 25. No, no. And all of a sudden, an old man from the back came walking up, and had long gray hair, long gray beard, wrinkled face. And he walked up to the stage and he took the violin out of the auctioneer's hand and he looked at it, and then he put it up and he started playing. And he played the most beautiful music, heavenly music. It was enchanting. And by the time he was done playing, half of the people in the audience were weeping. The music was so beautiful. And he gave the violin back to the auctioneer, and he walked off. And the auctioneer looked at the violin, and he stood up straight, and he said, "How about $25,000? 25,000? How about 30,000? 30,000? How about 35,000?" You see, it's not the instrument. It's what happens when a master violinist touched that violin, changed everything. What we have happened to us here is we have been touched by the master's hand. We just don't want to wake up and recognize it. And that each one of us here have been touched by the hand of the master. But it doesn't mean anything if you just roll back over and go back to sleep.
But I think that I have to give some, I'm feeling vulnerable here talking about this. I come in here and cry like a baby, and I think that there's a lot of, I want some credit for being willing to talk about it, and being willing to go through the pain of it. And,
No, I'm glad you're talking about it.
Because I can't come in and just be the butterfly.
No.
Thinking that I can't, that people will hear, I can't believe that I'd be the only one that gets his pain, gets afraid.
Well, getting afraid is a whole different story than what you're talking about. Experiencing fear is a whole different story than what you're talking about. Yours goes way beyond that. This is not just about fear, because if it was about fear, you'd realize that there's nothing to be afraid of. What I said a little while ago is that if God has all knowledge, and I believe that He does, and God has all power, and I'm sure that he does, and God dwells within us, and I believe that He does, then it goes without saying, knowledge and the power within me to deal with anything in front of me. If I'm able to tap into that power that's God. If I can tap into the power that's God, then, see, fear is only without God.
Yeah, and I need to hear that, because I know that everything is okay, and it's okay to be sad, hurt,
Yeah. Well, everything may not be okay. Everything may not. The preacher in my brother's service over the weekend, he said something really powerful. He said, trying to think how he said it. He said, we're here and we're grieving for Bill. But he said, that is fine, but we don't grieve like those without hope. Our grieving is not the same as somebody grieving without hope. Because my brother was born again, and so that whole clique there, they're all born again, they're all true believers, right? But he said, and when he said that, I realized that, I related to that as well, even though I'm not part of that clique. I'm part of this clique. And I am not without hope. So I can grieve from emotion. And I can miss. So even Jesus shed tears for Lazarus. So it's not about, because, that it's fine to grieve and to miss somebody and to feel sorrow and to feel pain and to cry. For not just over a death, but over lots of things. There's nothing wrong with that. Tears are just liquid emotions. That's all they are. So it's fine to do that. But the message from the preacher that day was, we don't grieve like those without hope. We grieve, we feel pain, we feel sorrow, we cry, but not like those without hope. So I think that's a powerful thing. It's actually very powerful. So what you have to do is you have to learn how to tap into the power that is God, that is right there in you. And the only thing that'll stop you from doing that is the things that are still in you that block you from the sunlight of the Spirit. And that's what the steps do. The steps remove the things that block us from God. And if you're still that blocked from God, you might need to go through the steps. Does that make sense? And that's really what it's all about. Because when you go through, when you remove yourself, when you remove the things that block you from God, you got a clear path. There's no fear. Because whatever's in front of me, I know I have the knowledge and the power and the God in me to stand through it. I might not have the knowledge to fix this problem, but I have the knowledge that I have is that God is with me, and that if I apply myself, whatever's going to be is going to be.
And I know that, and I believe that. And when I get into this, I can feel, I can rest in that. But I know I need to do stuff again, and there is stuff that I've left out with,
There's definitely things in you that are blocking you from the sunlight of the Spirit. That's, huh?
I feel my little demons. But it's not like I don't ever say that drinking's not an option, but it's not that, that makes it sound miserable, so that's not, I'm not on the board of using or anything like that. But
Yeah, no, I get it.
yeah, it's just.
Yeah. No, because, God gave us a brain. We're going to use our brain. Intellectually, drinking is not going to solve anything. It's only going to make things worse. So, when I'm depressed, now that I'm sober and I'm feeling a little depressed about something, the last thing in the world I want is a depressant, which is what alcohol is, right?
Drinking on a good day.
Yeah. So, yeah. There's definitely things that you can do. Work the steps again and go into more detail in certain things and go a little deeper this time and look at the things that are still in you that are blocking you from the sunlight of the Spirit. I remember I was maybe 6 months sober or something like that, and I can't remember. It was a long time ago, but I remember my sponsor took me to a meeting, and it was a speaker meeting. And the guy at the podium had, I don't remember, 8, 10, 12 years, whatever he had. And he started sharing. First thing he said, how much sober time he had. And then he started sharing. And the guy was sharing about powerless over this and powerless over that and powerless over this and powerless over that. And I started getting friggin' depressed. I'm sitting in the meeting next to my sponsor, and I'm thinking, is this what I got to look forward to at 10 years sober? You know, I might as well go get loaded now if I'm going to feel that way in 10 years. And my sponsor said to me this, there's examples of, people are examples in this room. He said, there's examples of how we want to be and examples of how we don't want to be. And this guy speaking is a perfect example of how we don't want to be. So then I was about, I want to say I was probably just under 2 years sober, and I was in a regular meeting. And I don't remember what the topic was, but I shared about being a thief and a liar and a cheat and all of these things. And after the meeting, a guy came up to me and he said, how long you been sober? Whatever it was, year and a half. And he looked at me and he said, when are you going to change? And when he said that to me, you know what I realized? I realized that I really wasn't those things. But I had been, that's who I was my whole life. And I didn't know how to say anything different. So I said to him, I said, you know what? I'm not really those things anymore. He said, well, then why are you calling yourself that? Like you just called yourself bad and, you know. Why are you calling yourself that? Because that's probably not the case no more. But you do it because that's all you know how to, you've been doing it your whole life.
Yeah, I think I'm in growing pains. I think it's, I mean, you know, getting enough pain where I do some work, you know? Like really do some work.
I asked if you had any questions, not about my hair, Penny. Nice haircut, she said. Nice watch. Who said that? Oh, Charlotte. Nice watch. All right. So anyway, that's what we do. We go through the steps. We remove the things that block us from the sunlight of the Spirit so we can have an open channel to God. Now, that channel is not always open. It doesn't always stay open. It doesn't stay open for me either. It's not always open. But 90% of my waking day, my channel is open to God. And the 10% that is not is I'm so absorbed in something that I'm doing. You know, nothing's bad, but whatever, work or whatever it is, I'm so absorbed in that. But the rest of the time, most of the time, I have an open channel to God. And if I start thinking and planning results, remember I said way back in the third step, I said, if you learn how to get out of result business, your spirituality is going to soar. So if I start thinking and planning results, thinking too deeply and planning results, you know what that brings on? Fear. Because now I'm taking charge of it. My job is to check my motives, do the best I can on whatever I'm doing, and leave the results to God. That's what my job is. That's what I started doing in step 3, and now here we are in step 11, and I'm working on that. How's my third step doing? I see that in my 11th step. How's that decision I made in step 3 doing? I'll look at it in my 11th step and find out. Does all that make sense to you guys? So anybody have any questions online here besides my watch and my haircut? Any questions at all on step 11? The tool, the goal, the direction. You understand all that? Step 11, the tool, the goal, the direction. Very important. Step 11 is self-explanatory. It's easy, and yet 95% of the people that I know in AA or CA, they just do something completely different than what's written in step 11. And they call that their 11th step. Like, for example, reading all the meditation books. So, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with reading meditation books. You can read all the books you want in addition to the 11th step, but not in lieu of your 11th step. Reading meditation books is not the 11th step. It could be a good habit for you to get into after you do your 11th step. So let's see. All right. We got plenty of time left, and I'm trying not to go into the 12th step because I'm going to figure that we're going to have 2 weeks left here. We need 2 full weeks. So anybody got any questions or need to talk about anything? First 11 steps, 11 different steps. Any questions on them? Any questions on the first 11 steps of the program? So, back in step 3, and this is something that you might want to look at. Back in step 3, I asked, I made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him, right? And I asked you, if you guys remember, I asked, what is that decision based on? Remember I asked that question? What is that decision based on? Because the people that come into the rooms and they don't do the first 2 steps, I don't think they have any idea what that decision is based on. It's based on an intellectual thought of theirs, okay? But they haven't talked about God, and they haven't looked at the search for God. Really hasn't begun for them, and they don't have any kind of understanding of God at all. But yet they're going to turn their will and their life over to the care of God. Huh? Well, hope will only get you so far. Well, my point though is I don't really care what their answer to that is. My point is that if they didn't do any second step work and they don't have any idea of who and what God is personally to them, then what that decision they're making in the third step is based on what? Maybe hope. Okay? But all of the questions in the second step lead me to a more concrete understanding and observance of who and what God really is. Not that I need to understand God, but I need to have an understanding of God that works for me. And so hope will only carry you so far. I mean, I can hope that I hit the lotto tomorrow, and there's only a couple of things I could do about that, like buy a ticket.
Well, I mean, when you're on the third step, when you're saying it carried you so far, hopefully it would carry you to the point where you start to develop the rudiments of faith through experience, right?
Yeah, if you did the first 2 steps strongly out of the book, and the third step also. And what is the third step really about? The third step is really about understanding that and being convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. And most people don't spend any time. There's like 2 or 3 pages in the book as examples in step 2, and step 3 rather, on that topic. Yes, 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 that's right. And in there is, I mean, those are just examples for you to put your own life to. Not so much to read that and say, okay, it makes sense, but how does it make sense? Where in my life? So most people that if you ask them if they're on their 4th step, and if you ask them, are you convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success? They're all going to say yes. But 90-something%, I'm just making this number up. I don't really know. I would wager that over 90% of them don't act that way. You see it. You see it in how people act in the rooms. You see that Mike, right? He'll tell you he turned his will and his life over, and that he's convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. But he sure don't act that way. He acts just the opposite, like he's in charge and that he's God, you know. And you know, so it's obvious when you watch people in the rooms that you know that they're not convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. So therefore, the rest of the steps they're doing, there's something missing out of that foundation. And now here you get to step 11, and you have incomplete pieces. The puzzle is not put together completely. There's still a couple of pieces missing. There's even a piece here that you squeezed into the wrong spot and don't belong in that spot. To you, it looks like it does, but it don't. So we got to go back and re-examine the steps and on a deeper level and start having some type of understanding of who and what God is to me personally. And again, that doesn't mean I understand God. It means I have an understanding of God that works for me in my life, and that is the basis of the decision that I'm making in step 3. So what is that decision based on? It's based on what I think and believe about God. And if I didn't do that in step 2, then I don't know what I think and believe about God. And if you're my sponsor and we didn't do that in step 2, then you don't have any idea either what I think and believe about God. You following me? So, you know, it's not actually the sponsee's fault. It's more of the sponsor's fault for not following the real directions in the book and allowing the sponsee to half-heartedly do the steps, which is the whole purpose of this class that we've been doing, is so we can understand what the book is saying and do it and then teach it and pass it on that way. And the more we do that, the more people are going to have real sobriety, emotional sobriety. Emotional sobriety. How long have you been sober now? Don't be embarrassed. Okay. 10 years. Coming up on 10 years. Listen.
But you know what, like, who does the steps like this in women's lives? You know, I've sought out, and I don't care if they 6 months sobriety, you know, they were doing the steps out in the book, and like, you know, I sought it out.
Well, there's a lot of people. Unfortunately, there's many, many more. For everyone that is doing this, there's probably 20 or 30 that ain't, or more. So, you know, but the thing is this. It's never too late to start. I tell you, I had a guy that was 54 years sober that I sponsored in Florida. 54 years.
I believe that, and I never would think that I'm not.
Like 54 years, something like that he was.
You know, come in with being nut or whatever, but in what I've done in my past has got me where I'm going, and
Yeah.
sober and a hell of a lot better. So I want to keep on, you know, I want to grow some more, and
You want to soar like an eagle instead of...
I'm fucking sore
instead of peck like the buzzards. Yeah. You know, I tell people, the amazing thing is we walk into a smorgasbord with tables that long full with lobster and filet mignon and crab and your favorite dishes, and there we are over in that corner there with a little cheese and cracker.
But it seems like most areas like that anymore, it's hard to find.
It is hard to
There's
find.
room growing there and want to grow and understand. You know, see, I know so many people just stop and go golf or something, and I can't, I'm gonna die. I mean,
Yeah.
so I've got to sit here.
It is hard to find. It is hard to find. But there's plenty of people out there. There's plenty of people out there. Men, women, it don't matter what it is. It don't matter. You know, we'll talk about that in the 12th step. You know, people say women sponsor women and men sponsor men, and the truth to that is that if men don't sponsor women, there would be no women in AA. Because at the beginning there was just men, and one day a woman walked in and somebody sponsored her. Bill Wilson sponsored her. She was the first woman in AA. So yeah. No, it's just a matter of working with somebody and trying to transmit the message in the book into their life and help them do that. That's really all it is. All right. Anybody else got any questions? Anybody online got questions? You were all quiet in there. Any questions at all? No? Stan Crowley. Stan, my man. Candace is watching. Hi, Candace. Jennifer. Shannon. Nobody got a question? Well, we're going to finish early tonight. We've got 2 weeks left. So next week and the week after, we will finish the 12th step in 2 weeks. And we are done. You have graduated. And whoever's here for graduation, I'll give them a little prize. All right, that's it. Good night.